we're live for Networking at Noon. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to our second episode, actually, of Networking at Noon. I am Tiffanie Kellog, your hostess, and today I'm joined. Who am I joined by? Who's here with me?
Hi, I am Mercedes Buntz. Thank you so much for having me, Tiffanie. I'm excited. I've never been interviewed live before. You're the first.
You know, it's an interesting thing. We put it out there on Facebook, and we hope that if it gets messed up, they'll forgive us. Though I do my annoying questions with Rob, so that's always a mess up. So I guess I learned early, like, it doesn't have to be perfect in order for it to be fun. So we're glad that you're here with us today. Mercedes is one of our Referrals for Life community members. And Mercedes, you want to tell us what it is that you do for work?
Well, there's the short version and the long version. The short version is I am an attorney. I do estate planning and administration, which basically means that I help people plan for and navigate life's major events. So all those, the wills, the trusts, the powers of attorney, the healthcare surrogates, all those documents that help people in certain situations, I help prepare them. And then when a person passes, I help wrap up their affairs and administer their estate.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned something about life changes, major changes. What are some examples of changes where people might need to reevaluate or even evaluate for the very first time, kind of what's my plan?
Well, it's the basics, all the cycles of life: births, deaths, illnesses, marriages, divorces. If you move to Florida, if you're new to Florida from another state, if you're transitioning into retirement.
So if let's say I moved here to Florida from North Carolina, and I've got my estate planning all done, I've got my will, I've got all of that. Why would I need to see you now that I'm in Florida instead of North Carolina?
Well, often states have different rules, different laws, different signing formalities. So you want to make sure that because the law that applies is the law of the state that you're a resident of. Okay. So if you're coming from North Carolina, I don't know where you came up with that example.
Because I moved here from North Carolina, for those of you that don't know.
I need it. Right. You want to make sure that your North Carolina documents conform to Florida law. So you may not have to change them. You may not have to update them, but you just want to make sure that North Carolina meshes up with Florida laws. Like, for an example, is I've seen clients' paperwork for a power of attorney, and in the state that they came from, only one witness and a notary was required. Well, in Florida, for the power of attorney to have anything to do with land, you needed two witnesses and a notary. Since then, that law was changed, and it just requires two witnesses and a notary, period. But that's one example. I used to work for the UAW Legal Services Plan, so I had a lot.
Wait. You used to work for what? Like, spell that out for those of us that don't know.
I worked for almost 10 years for the UAW Legal Services Plan. UAW is the United Auto Workers. And as you can imagine, there's not a lot of car factories in Florida. There were 2 distribution part centers, but there were a lot of retirees, people that moved down from New York, from Ohio, from Indiana. So they were entitled to services down here, legal services under the plan as a union benefit. And so I saw a lot of documents from other states. So that's how I know, because otherwise, I would have no way of knowing. I only practice in Florida. I'm licensed in Florida.
Gotcha. Now, so you worked with them, you said, for 10 years?
Just shy of 10 years, yep. And then
what made you decide to go out on your own?
Well, that was a long journey, but basically I loved working for the UAW Legal Services Plan. I loved my retirees, a lot of stories, and just warm people, interesting people with different backgrounds. One of my clients was a former Tuskegee Airman that I fondly remember. But the legal plan closed. The big 3 didn't want to fund it anymore. So I kind of was forced to decide what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I didn't actually go out on my own right away. I kind of looked for a while and I didn't find something that was a good fit. But then my husband, who's also an attorney that does something completely different, but he encouraged me to go out on my own. So with his support and encouragement, and the encouragement, frankly, of a lot of other colleagues that had gone out on their own, I made the jump, which was a big deal for me because, Tiffanie, you know, I tend to be pretty conservative. And, you know, I'm one of those that dip the toes into the water, you know, and I don't just jump in. But I was really encouraged. That was about 6 years ago. So I had my own firm. This is my 6th year.
You like doing, because you're still doing it 6 years later. Who are those kind of clients that you love working with, and what really lights you up about the opportunity to help them out?
Well, I what lights me up is just helping people, because a lot of people, let's face it, they don't come to an attorney when something good happens. It's usually because either something bad happened or is about to happen. But I like helping people kind of work through that. It's something small that I can do. So, you know, like, for example, I was just contacted a week ago from, you know, by a client who was facing emergency surgery, totally unplanned, totally unexpected. She didn't have any documents in place. She was apologizing to me for the short notice. I'm like, no, I understand. It's human nature. It's not, you know, estate planning is not something at the top of the list, but I was able to help her get her documents in place. So she felt better. She's like, I would feel so much better. I don't think anything's going to happen to me, but I would feel better if I knew that this was in place. So I did what I had to do to help her so that she had that peace of mind. I myself didn't have my documents in place until I had a health scare, and I could do my own. So I really had no excuse. So I understand, you know, what people think, and it made me feel better to have mine in place.
How old do you think is the age where, okay, it's time for you to start getting some of this together? Like, in an ideal world, how young, I guess I should say, not old, how young would we be when we start doing some of this planning?
Well, my clients hear from me a lot. There's the legal answer and then there's the practical answer. So let me give you both.
Okay.
Ideally, when you graduate from high school, you're probably 18 years old, which means legally you're an adult, which means that mom and dad can't swoop in and talk to your doctors, make medical decisions, or access your bank account or write checks for you and help you out. So, but like 18 to 21, it's kind of like you're in that transition period where, yes, you're legally an adult, but you still kind of rely on mom and dad a little bit, even if you don't want to or think that you're not. So, right. So like, for example, in thinking back, I was 17 when I went to college. I had just turned 17 in February and started in the fall because I skipped a grade. Okay. So I was a year younger than everybody. I was trying to do the math
and I'm like,
yep. I skipped first grade. But I had a medical emergency where I fell and I got a cut that needed stitches. And so they had to call my parents for permission because I couldn't give the doctor permission to stitch my leg. You know what I mean? So thinking back, had I had at least a designation of healthcare surrogate in place for those medical emergencies that you never know. Because, I mean, people don't plan for accidents. They're called accidents for a reason.
Yeah.
So ideally, I would love your high school graduates, your college graduates. That's one of those major life events that we were talking about before. If I don't get them then, I would love to meet people that are engaged to be married or decide to move in together if they don't believe in getting married. Because now you have two individuals that are merging their lives. And especially if there's no marriage, you want a legal document that says this is the person that I want to make medical decisions for me.
Right.
So, and then if I don't get them then when they start having kids, because now there's little ones to provide for, to make sure that there's a guardian. Usually parents have strong opinions about who they want to take care of their children if it can't be them.
Right.
So let's document all this in the legal way and get it all down so that people don't worry and minimize any fuss. If I don't get them then, when they're having children, then when their children grow up and move away and maybe get engaged and start having children of their own. But usually the clients that are most motivated to see me are the ones that are transitioning into retirement, because I think people at that stage in their lives realize that they're closer to the end than the beginning. And their mind naturally turns to, okay, well, when I'm gone, I don't want to leave a mess for my kids. Another category of people that are really motivated to talk to me are the people facing a medical emergency, like that client that I shared who had the surgery that she wasn't planning for. She called me. I just got out of the doctor's office. They want me to have surgery on Friday, but I can't. So I'm like, Tuesday.
Oh my. So let me ask,
it happens.
If I'm not married and I go to surgery and I don't wake up, who then makes decisions for me if I don't have my stuff in place?
Well, in your case, I just happen to know that you're married to Rob.
No, but pretend I'm not married.
Oh, pretend you're not married?
I'm not married. I'm single.
Okay. So if you're not married, then the law, there's a statute that dictates who to look for to make a medical decision for you. So if you're not married, they look to see if you have adult children. If you have no adult children, then kind of, if you picture a family tree, it's helpful.
So it just kind of goes out there.
So, at first they look to see if you're married. If you're not married, then they look to see if you have children. If you're not married and you have no children that are legal adults, then they go up. So to your parents. If you have no parents or the parents.
So it could end up going to your second cousin that you've never met before.
I mean, legally, the legal answer is yes. Practically, people usually don't get there.
All right, gotcha.
But then I've talked to clients. I mean, I've been an attorney. It'll be 23 years in July. You won't believe the number of stories and situations that I've heard. I have yet to meet two sets of clients with the same set of circumstances and the same set of concerns. I've heard stories about, for whatever reason, they don't want their spouse to make a medical decision. They want a child to do it, or they're estranged from their children and they're widow or widowed, and they prefer their dear friend that they've grown up with since kindergarten to make that decision. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons and all kinds of things, and there's no right or wrong. It's just what you feel is right for you.
Gotcha.
So I like helping people kind of figure that out, so then they don't have to worry.
Because it's nice not to have to worry about at least one thing in our lives, because there's plenty of worry going on. So
exactly.
Amazing law practice. What do you do to relax? What's on the weekend plans for you typically? What do you enjoy?
Typically, my husband and I are going to a little 1-bedroom condo we have at the beach to escape from the world. It's in North Clearwater Beach, super peaceful, and we just recharge. As I mentioned, he's an attorney also, but he's in litigation. So especially him, it's just a nice place to kind of go, kind of remove yourself from the day-to-day concerns and recharge so you can get up and do it again the next week. And what's really nice is my parents bought a place in the same building. They bought a unit over the summer. So we see them a lot. On the weekend too, wave each other from the balcony or say, hey, do you want to come up? I'm making pizza. Or, they say, mom made, last week was Rick's birthday, my husband's birthday, and she made him asopao, which is like a rice, and this particular one was chicken, chicken soup stew kind of thing, so.
Is that a Puerto Rican dish?
It is.
Oh, and why would I know that it's a Puerto Rican dish?
Because I'm Puerto Rican. I was born in Puerto Rico, but we moved to Florida when I was 5. So I'm almost a native Floridian. Close.
Almost a native Floridian. But how's your Spanish?
Oh, I grew up speaking Spanish. People that have been to Puerto Rico probably recognize the picture behind me. This is one of the sentry boxes from one of the forts in Old San Juan. But both my parents are Puerto Rican. Obviously, their family, my extended family is Puerto Rican. So I grew up speaking, in Spanish at the house. It's funny because you can tell who I'm talking to. Like if I call my parents' house, if I start speaking in Spanish, it's my mom. If I start speaking in English, it's my dad.
Oh.
They both speak Spanish, but Dad was raised in New York, so I don't know. It's just a switch in my head that happens.
With your fluidity in Spanish, are you able to help clients in Spanish as well?
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I especially liked to do, because like my grandmother, after a while lived with my parents. Well, both my grandparents moved from Puerto Rico to Florida in with my parents when they needed more help, and lived in the house with them. And then eventually my grandmother needed, to get her documents in order, especially after my grandfather died. And my mom, who was helping her, couldn't find an attorney that spoke Spanish in Pinellas County. Didn't find one. What she got, the closest thing that she got was an attorney who had a paralegal or a staff member that spoke Spanish. But you don't want to talk to someone through an intermediary. You want to talk to someone directly. And I think especially with people of certain generations, that's even more important to them. So that's something that I like to provide. And I let people know, hey, I speak Spanish. If you have any Spanish speaking loved ones, friends, family members, neighbors, and they're having trouble, even if it's not with something I do, I try to help, but especially if it's what I do. I think I'm only one of 2 Spanish speaking attorneys in Pinellas County that I'm aware of.
Wow.
So, I'm based in Pinellas County, even though I work throughout the Tampa Bay area and beyond. But obviously, I'm more familiar with Pinellas County, having lived here since I was like 6 or 7.
That does make sense. Mm-hmm. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, you are part of Asentiv's Referrals for Life community. So I'm curious, what inspired you or made you want to become a part of the community, and why are you still a part of the community? What has Asentiv done for you?
You wore me down, Tiffanie. I met Tiffanie.
Come on now.
No, I say that in the best way possible. Like I mentioned before, I'm one of those cautious people that dip my toe in. I met Tiffanie about 4 years ago through networking, and I took her trainings. I read her books, including the one that's behind her right now. And I'm a lifelong learner. You can imagine, as an attorney by nature and profession, I'm a nerd. My dad said I would be a lifelong student if that was a thing. But I always enjoyed learning, especially from Tiffanie, and learning about networking and business and referrals and just how to be better. And I knew that she had the Ignite Your Business program. And I knew that kind of like after you graduated from that, the next step was the Referrals for Life. And just from all those steps over about 3 years' time, that's why I joked that you wore me down. She didn't push me into it. It just took me that long to get around to it and make the time for it. I took the Ignite Your Business class. I believe it was one of your first entirely Zoom classes.
Yeah.
Given the situation.
May?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We did it last May of last year?
Yep. And then after I graduated, I joined the Referrals for Life because it was just the natural continuation to stay immersed in the information. Because how many of us, pick something up 100% the first time we learn it? And then also things change. I mean, COVID happened. My gosh, haven't we all had to pivot and adapt, and learn new ways of doing old things? And sometimes they're better. So that's part of the reason that I joined the Referrals for Life. I really enjoy the mastermind sessions every month that we have, especially now that you're doing industry specific ones. There's an attorney masterminds too. And it's just a great opportunity to meet with like-minded people. Sometimes it's helpful to talk to people in other professions, and sometimes it's helpful to talk to people in your own profession about what you're going through. And if you have this issue that you're grappling with, I mean, why reinvent the wheel? The people that you're talking to probably have been through the same situation or a very similar situation, and they can offer you the benefit of their advice and definitely their support. So that's something that I really try to take advantage of in the Referrals for Life program.
Yeah, I love the masterminds. You get answer to your question, and then you get answers to questions you didn't even know that you needed to ask.
Exactly. Like the one I think there was one earlier this week, and another person asked something about social media strategies. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great question. I need to think about that. And I'm like taking notes, and that's her question,
Awesome. Well, so Mercedes, if people are watching this and they want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
The very best way to contact me is by phone or email. My phone is 727-474-0228, or my work email is mercedes@mbuntzlaw.com. So sometimes I'm in the middle of something or an appointment with a client, like this afternoon after speaking with you. I have back-to-back appointments. Obviously, I can't answer the phone then, but I really try to return calls within 24 hours.
Excellent, excellent. Anything else you want to share with our viewing audience today, Mercedes?
Oh my gosh, I'm so looking forward to this weekend. I don't know about the rest of you, but this year has started off with a bang. And in a good way, thankfully. Just busy. January is usually a busy time for me.
Oh, because people are like, oh, it's the beginning of the year, I should take care of stuff.
Right. New Year's resolutions, it's top of mind. So I'm really working to try to address people's, questions and concerns and get their documents in a row.
Gotcha. Well, Mercedes, thank you so very much for being here at Networking at Noon. Thanks everybody out there for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you for the opportunity.